Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, folks, today we are really getting into it. We're strapping in for probably the most, let's say, abstract territory we've ever explored. We're talking the nature of existence itself, where the eternal meets the temporal.
Yeah.
It's big stuff.
It absolutely is. We're zeroing in on the Creator, specifically who these texts call the second Godhead, or the Son. And we're looking at why his eternal nature isn't just, an attribute, but a logical necessity.
Right.
How does this infinite, unchangeable identity basically dictate our reality, our finite world, time, space, all of it?
Yeah, our sources today, they're foundational. They're theological bedrock. These texts are really focused on drawing this hard line between the divine and the created.
A really sharp line.
Exactly, but we're digging into some intricate arguments about existence, non-existence, and maybe the most humbling part, the limits on our own minds trying to grasp the infinite.
And that's the mission for this deep dive, really. It's to synthesize these pretty dense ideas, not just to define the divine nature, but to get the why. Why must the Creator be unchanging?
Okay.
And why does everything we perceive, physics, time flowing, the space we're in, why does its structural integrity depend entirely on this absolute, unending existence?
Okay, let's unpack this, man. We're tackling the absolute core questions. Creation, yeah, but also perpetuity, what it means to be and even what it means to not be. So right from the get-go, the source material uses language about the Son that's just absolute. It's clearly meant to place him outside the category of created things entirely. We get phrases like the Word was God or he exists in the bosom of the Father. This isn't just saying he's important. It's an eternal pre-existence claim, right?
It's about establishing inherent divinity, yes. The sources are really meticulous here. They use language equating the Son with the very essence of the first Godhead. He's called the express image of his person.
And that phrase is key.
It's vital. It implies a shared substance, not just a resemblance. He embodies the Father's unchanging foundational nature. And that essence is why he's identified as the Creator, the one who laid the foundations of the earth and heavens.
And the sources use that act of creation, setting up the whole cosmos, to immediately draw the contrast between creator and created. We look at the sky, the heavens, and think eternal, but the texts say, nope, temporary.
Absolutely. The entire cosmos, all those galaxies, it's all subject to change. It will perish. It'll grow old like a garment. I mean, that's stark imagery.
It really is.
The whole material reality we see, it gets rolled up, folded away, replaced eventually. It's inherently mutable. It decays. But the Creator who designed those rules, he's outside them. The Son, the sources insist, remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. His years will never end. It's this radical difference between the foundation and the structure built on it.
Sets up this core idea.
Yeah.
Inherent substance versus, well, manufactured material. The heavens and earth are the product. The Son is the producer.
Exactly. And they push it further. They contrast the Son directly with other powerful beings, like angels.
Right. Angels.
Angels are explicitly called ministering spirits, created beings, servants. They have a beginning. But the Son, he's described using this really specific ancient language, quoting texts like Psalm 102.
Ah, okay. And that psalm originally described the first Godhead. Yeah.
Traditionally, yes. It spoke of the first Godhead's eternal, unshakable power, the one whose years never end while the earth and heavens wear out like a robe.
So applying that same language to the Son is what? Sealing the deal theologically?
It's the rhetorical lock-in, precisely. It confirms he shares that necessary, eternal, non-created status. You need that status to be the Creator. Think about it. If the Creator was also created, he'd be subject to the same decay, the same obsolescence as everything else, even angels or the cosmos itself.
The Creator has to be eternal, not just, like, super powerful.
Has to be. It's fundamental to the argument. Hashtag TagShag 1.2, debunking temporal existence, the non-existence paradox.
Which leads us right into this foundational argument, what we're calling the non-existence paradox. The texts just fiercely reject any idea that the Son was, say, the first created being. Even as a thought experiment, why is that idea shot down immediately?
Because it fundamentally violates the nature of sovereignty over existence itself. I mean, if something is created, it logically must have a beginning, right?
Makes sense.
And if it has a beginning, then there must have been a time, however brief, when it was. Well, when it was not, when it didn't exist.
Right.
The sources call this the state of non-existence, or Django in the original text concept. And this is the absolute crux.
Okay, so the argument is, if the Son ever had a point where he was not, where he existed, so to speak, as non-existence before being made, then that very act of coming into being requires time to flow.
Exactly. He'd be constrained by the timeline he supposedly created.
And he trapped in it.
Precisely. Anything that transitions from non-existence to existence is defined by time. It gets a timeline, it has a moment zero. If the creator had a moment zero, then time must have existed before him.
Which makes him subject to time.
Subject to temporality. He couldn't be eternal, couldn't be unchangeable, and crucially, he couldn't transcend the very dimensions of space and time he's meant to have authored.
Wow. Okay, the implications for reality there are huge. If the creator could change, if he had a beginning, then the foundation isn't absolute.
The whole structure becomes arbitrary, volatile.
How could we trust that basic laws, 2 + 2 = 4, gravity working tomorrow like it did yesterday,
Yeah.
how could any of that be constant if the source isn't?
That's the heart of the logical necessity presented here. For natural laws, math, logic itself to hold firm, they argue it must be grounded in an absolute, unchanging, non-temporal source. The very substance, the essence of the Godhead, they insist, cannot be something that previously was not.
It forces you to think of God as logically prior to time, independent of it. You can't even imagine a time before God, because the moment you invoke time, you've already presupposed the eternal creator who defines it.
It grounds everything in what they call necessary existence. And that's why the Son gets these titles, these names, affirming absolute unending power. You see them in Isaiah 9.6, for instance. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace.
These aren't just descriptions.
No, they're presented as synonymous with that self-existent, logically necessary foundation for absolutely everything.
All right, so we've nailed down the creator as eternal outside time. Let's flip the camera around. Look at us.
Yeah.
If he is infinite, what does that automatically mean for us, the created?
It means we are inherently limited, irreversibly so. We are finite by definition. Our entire structure is built to exist only within the flow of time and space.
We had to start somewhere.
We necessarily started from non-existence. We only came into being within that temporal flow and called into it. So our whole way of perceiving, seeing, hearing, thinking, reasoning, it's all confined to the dimensional structure made for us.
So we can't escape space-time, because space-time is what makes us creatures in the first place. We're temporal beings swimming in a temporal stream. And crucially, that stream itself isn't eternal either, right?
No, not according to these sources. Time and space aren't presented as just immutable laws out there. They're actively sustained structures.
Sustained how?
They're described as temporary creations. Continuously upheld, the word used, implies ongoing maintenance. Iu peso by the creator, God's powerful word. He's not like a watchmaker who wound it up and left.
So he's constantly holding it together.
Constantly, holding every second, every inch of space together. If he stopped sustaining, poof, the whole space-time continuum would just cease to be.
That makes our grip on reality feel a lot more, tenuous. Our existence isn't self-generated. It's being granted constantly, moment by moment, by this external, non-temporal power. Hashtag 2.2, the incomprehensibility of the eternal infinite. Okay, if we're totally stuck inside this temporal sphere, like your fishbowl analogy, how can we even begin to grasp the being outside the bowl, the one defining the glass?
Well, the sources are emphatic. We can't. Not really. The realm of the eternal infinite is the concept. It just transcends creaturely comprehension. It belongs solely to God.
But we use the word infinite all the time.
We use the word sure, but our ability to actually process the concept is flawed. Because our capacity for thought, our very mental architecture, is itself limited and defined by the Creator.
So even when I try my hardest, philosophically, to imagine endless time or boundless space, I'm still thinking within my limits. The source says the boundary of my thought is set by God.
Think of it like this. Imagine a super smart mathematician, but they live entirely in a flat, two-dimensional world, flat land.
Okay.
They can conceive of vastness, right? Infinite length, infinite width. But can they truly, truly conceive of a third dimension? Height, depth.
Probably not. Not in a way that matches the reality of it.
Exactly. Their concept of infinity is just an infinite plane. Our mental grasp of infinity is kind of similar. It's the absolute furthest boundary God allows within our thinking structure, but it's still bounded by our time-based finite minds.
Wow, so our infinity isn't God's infinity.
Not even close. And this limitation, the sources argue, is precisely why we can't truly judge God's actions or predict his judgments. It's why his judgments are unsearchable and his ways past finding out.
We're using a 2D map for a 3D, or maybe infinite D, reality.
We just lack the cognitive tools. We can't fully process the non-temporal, non-spatial complexity of God's thoughts or plans. Hashtag tag 2.3, the concept of existence and non-existence.
This takes us to maybe the most abstract point yet. The Creator isn't just the God of existence, but he's sovereign over both existence and non-existence. He's the only true reality. I am, WHO, I am. But what does it mean that non-existence is something he controls? Isn't it just absence?
Not in this framework. Non-existence isn't just an empty void or a philosophical zero. It's presented as a state that God actively governs. When he creates, he calls non-existence into existence. He starts being.
Okay.
But the reverse is also true. He holds the power to return existence to non-existence. The sources mention things like, if he withdraws his spirit, his breath, the sustaining power.
Then created existence just returns to dust, perishes.
Exactly, it reverts. So non-existence becomes the potential state, the default maybe, for all created things, and it's a state the Creator controls completely.
And this power difference, this gap between the divine perspective and ours, the sources use some pretty incredible imagery for that, don't they?
Oh, the language is stunning. It says, from the Creator's viewpoint, all the nations, the continents, the islands, the entire cosmos, it's like a single drop in a bucket.
Wow.
Or like the fine dust on scales that barely even registers. It's compared to a dream that vanishes the instant you wake up. From his eternal perspective, God regards our entire time and space as if it were essentially nothing.
That really puts our perceived importance in perspective. Time is everything to us. To the eternal, a blink.
It's the divine reality transcending the need for time. But, and this is a crucial check the sources always add, just because it's nothing to God doesn't mean it isn't real to us.
Okay. So our reality isn't an illusion.
No, it's absolutely real for us. Why? Because the Creator is defined as true existence. The very fact that we can perceive reality, that we exist in space-time, that we recognize true laws, this actually proves the Creator's truthfulness.
How so?
Because if the foundation, the Creator himself, were somehow false or capable of slipping into non-existence, then our reality would logically just collapse. It would become falsehood. The stability you feel right now, this moment, is directly tied to his absolute, unchanging, true nature.
So the fact that I trust my senses, that gravity works, that's theological proof. Proof that true existence is sustaining this moment truthfully.
That's the argument. It elevates the simple act of existing into evidence for the nature of the Creator.
Okay, we've got the second Godhead established as eternally necessary outside time. Now for the massive paradox. How does this eternal, unconstrained being enter the constraints, enter his own creation? The sources explain this through the incarnation, right? This idea of voluntary limitation.
Yes, it's presented as the ultimate act of, well, humility and purpose. The Son, eternally equal with the Father, existing in the very form of God, makes a willful choice. He doesn't cling to that equality.
He emptied himself. That's the phrase often used, kenosis.
That's the theological term, yes, from the original Philippians text concept. He emptied himself, became a servant, a creature bound by space and time like us. Now, crucially, this isn't framed as a loss of divinity. It's a functional limitation of its expression.
Okay, so he took on the full limits, became, functionally speaking, the king of creatures, but within their sphere.
Precisely. He entered time and space specifically to operate as king over creatures, but with a very specific mission: to destroy sin and death, which are themselves temporal problems, limitations on humanity. So this kingship is functional, it's temporal, it exists only within the created framework.
And that contrasts with his eternal status as the Lord of reality.
Starkly, his eternal status is far beyond just being king of creatures. That's his role outside time. The kingship within time is a specific, limited role.
But hang on, how do the sources square this? If he's unchangeable, eternal, how can he suddenly take on creaturely nature? Doesn't that fly in the face of the non-existence paradox we just established, that he can't have changed or had a beginning?
Excellent question. It's the core tension. The sources argue the change isn't ontological. It's not a change in his fundamental being. The Son didn't stop being eternal God.
He added humanity.
He added humanity to his divinity. The limitation was voluntary, it was temporary, and it was undertaken for a specific mission within the created realm. Think of an infinitely capable architect choosing to only use basic hand tools for one specific project.
Okay.
His inherent skill, his nature, remains infinite. But his chosen operation for that job is finite, constrained.
Got it. And the goal, the culmination of this mission within time.
He became the heir, the inheritor, sent into the vineyard of creation, and through the cross, described as the ultimate act of love and propitiation.
Propitiation means?
Satisfying the demands of justice. Paying the price required by the foundational truth he established. This allows for peace, for reconciliation between the created and the creator, fixing the rebellion. It covers everything, earth and the heavenly realms within creation. Hashtag tag 3.2 completion and reversion.
So this specific temporal mission has an endpoint.
Absolutely. It has a defined trajectory. The Son's work, incarnation and cross, it opens the only way for created beings to fulfill their free will choice correctly, the choice to live eternally aligned with truth and love.
And his functional kingship culminates in defeating all opposition, last enemy being death.
Yes. He rules until all enemies are subdued. But then the sources, particularly 1 Corinthians 15, introduce another layer. Once everything is subjected to the Son himself will then be subjected to the Father.
Whoa. Okay, what's that about? Is that a demotion?
Not a demotion in essence. It's presented as a structural reversion, a great handover. The sources are careful to stress this act of subordination, the Son becoming subject to the Father. It happens only within the context of time and space.
The context where he took on creaturely form.
Exactly. Where he completed that specific redemption task. It's like the project manager handing the keys back to the owner once the building is finished and the job is done.
So it's not a change in his divinity. It's finishing a temporary role.
Precisely. Outside the box of space-time, where he's still the eternal sustainer, the second Godhead remains eternally equal to the first Godhead. The sources basically say this tension, temporal submission versus eternal equality, is something we creatures, stuck in linear time, will never fully wrap our heads around.
How can two opposite statuses exist at once?
Our brains aren't wired for it. We see cause and effect before and after. This concept operates outside that. Hashtag tag 3.3, the manifestation of truth and love.
But his entry into time wasn't just about fixing things, right? The sources talk about revelation too. Why reveal himself as a creature?
Because the Creator's nature, as revealed, is defined by immutable attributes, primarily truth and love. The texts state clearly that God reveals himself to creatures within this specific space-time structure as fundamentally true and fundamentally love.
So the things we value or strive for, truth, love, light, even the moral code and the commandments, these are concepts made understandable, perceivable, within our reality.
Yes, and the incarnate Son is presented as the physical embodiment, the you or actual reality of all of them. He is the way, the truth, the life.
He didn't just give rules. He was the rules lived out.
Yeah.
Within our framework.
Exactly, a tangible historical example. And this commitment to revealing himself as truth and love is so core, the sources even get into some interesting speculation. They sort of wonder, hypothetically, could God have created a world where he manifested as falsehood or hatred?
Seriously, they explore that.
They entertain the possibility, metaphysically speaking, but they immediately dismiss it.
Why?
They argue that even if it were possible, God chooses not to. He volitionally chooses to reveal his nature as truth and love within the structure he actually did establish. So the very parameters of our reality, the fact that truth generally works, that love is a real force, that morality has grounding, this isn't accidental. It's a conscious choice by the Creator, reflecting his own unchanging nature.
Our reality is structured for moral stability by design.
That's the implication, yeah.
Okay, let's pull back again. To the Creator in his full eternal state. We know he sustains reality. How do the sources describe the mechanics of that, especially with time?
It's defined by omnipresence and what you might call non-sequential reality. God isn't bound by the clock ticking. He doesn't move from past to present to future like we do.
He sustains all moments at once.
Simultaneously. Think of an author with their novel.
Okay.
The author exists outside the story. They can see chapter 1, the middle climax, the final sentence, all at the same time. It's all present to them. God is described similarly at every location and in every moment simultaneously.
So if space-time is this huge book, God's holding the whole thing, sustaining every page, Genesis to Revelation, all in one eternal now.
That's a good analogy, yes. And the sources add a critical detail. This sustaining power includes all the moments altered by creaturely free will.
All our choices, too.
He sustains the entire timeline, including every decision made by every person throughout all of history. His sovereignty is depicted as so vast, it encompasses the entire past, present, and future, including all the twists and turns introduced by free will.
That's staggering. The scope is almost impossible to picture. Sustaining this incredibly complex, evolving web of free choices, but seeing it all as one single, completed reality from his end.
The language confirms this total reach. The Father is above all, through all, and in all. The Son is also all things and in all things. There's simply no corner, no instant, no particle of existence outside this constant, simultaneous, sustaining power. It's the definition of true omnipotence.
And this includes his power over non-existence, too. The power to unmake.
Yes, he's the Alpha and Omega, beginning and end. His sovereignty covers existence, non-existence, the power to call things into being, and conversely, the power to dissolve them instantly back into the nothingness they came from. Hashtag 4.2, the judgment and non-existence.
Let's connect that sovereignty over existence and non-existence to the end game. The final fate of creation, specifically the judgment part. The sources seem pretty clear about what happens to those who reject the Creator's way of truth and love.
They are quite specific. For those creatures who persistently choose wickedness meaning, they reject that necessary foundation of truth and instead adhere to self-defined sin. The sources say they face a necessary judgment. They are consigned metaphorically to the lake of fire,
Which represents
paying the full just cost for their actions, for their sins against the established reality of truth and love.
Okay, but is this eternal conscious torment, like some traditions hold, or something else in these texts?
And these particular sources, the interpretation leans towards the latter. After the payment, the debt of sin is completed. The suggestion is that these created beings return to their natural state,
Which is?
non-existence. They fade away entirely. The imagery is decisive, becoming like a dreamlike illusion that vanishes on waking, or being consumed down to ashes, or dissipating like smoke.
So, a final end. Cessation of being. How does that square with God respecting free will, which came up earlier?
It's presented as the ultimate respect for their choice. God is true existence, defined by love and life. If a created being fundamentally chooses against that, against truth, against love, against life, they're choosing a path that's incompatible with eternal existence.
They're choosing non-existence, essentially.
In effect, God, being sovereign over both existence and non-existence, respects that definitive choice. Since they rejected the source of life, they can't live eternally. So he is able to return that existence to non-existence, like unwriting their chapter, because they chose not to be part of the story defined by truth. Hashtag 4.3 limits of human perception.
Whether we're talking beginnings, endings, or the sustaining power holding it all together, these sources keep coming back to one thing. We can't really grasp it. We're limited.
That emphasis on the limits of human perception is absolutely foundational. It's repeated constantly. We cannot truly conceive of the extent of God's power or ability. They ask these questions: how high is heaven? How deep is the abyss?
And they're not just poetic questions.
No, they represent genuine structural limitations of our minds. Even when we try to think about eternity or simultaneous time, we're doing it within our own linear, sequential thought process.
Our imagination of the infinite is always a finite imagination.
Yeah.
We use time to try and understand timelessness.
And that's the ultimate paradox of creaturely thought, isn't it? We use the very tools God created, time, space, logic, to try and comprehend the being who exists entirely beyond those tools yet. And this is where the sources land. They end with this profound affirmation of stability.
Oh, sorry.
Our very ability to perceive truth and falsehood, the fact that we do consistently exist within space and time, that things are predictable, this is offered as the final proof. This stability is the evidence that the Creator, who sustains this reliable reality and our perception within it, must be true existence. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive has been intense. A journey from defining the Creator right through to the final destiny of existence. I think the biggest takeaway, for me at least, is how utterly dependent everything is. Time, space. Our reality, it's not self-sufficient. It hangs entirely on this unchanging, necessary, eternal being who holds existence and non-existence in his hands simultaneously. The Creator's absolute nature isn't just a belief. It's presented as the logical requirement for reality itself to even hold together.
And what really stands out is that definition. God as true existence. The philosophical weight there is huge. If the Creator could change, if he could be mutable or slip into non-existence, our reality would just unravel into falsehood. The stability we experience, gravity working, truth having meaning, love being possible, it's all, according to these texts, tied directly to his absolute non-temporal nature.
Right. Okay, so as we wrap up, here's something to leave you chewing on. Building on that mind-bending idea of simultaneous time, the sources say God sustains the entire past, present, and future as one single, eternal now. So, if our future is already sustained in his eternal present, what does that really imply about our experience of free will, moment by moment? What does eternity even mean if it's not just time stretching on forever, but maybe? the full comprehension and holding of every moment of time within a single timeless instant.
It definitely forces you to rethink what it means to live in a time-bound reality that's sustained by a timeless being, something to ponder as you go back to your very specific moment in time.
Indeed. Thanks for diving deep with this today. We'll catch you next time.